Hello everyone, Sable here, and it has been a minute. I didn't intend to take this long between matches, but all at the same time, I would say life came up, my personal needs came up, some stuff I had to get done in my own world came up, and all that translated to a bit more time in between these than I'd like. But on the bright side, now that there's a backlog, I can kind of just do one of these a day instead of this like awkward every other day thing that I've been doing because there just aren't enough matches in the week. So I'm gonna start putting these up daily again, hopefully if all works out, although I'm probably gonna catch up pretty quickly. This is a week 4 match between Chungler and Phil, and there's only 3 matches during this week, and spoiler alert, I'm recording these right as week 7 is starting. So I'm expecting, just based on what I saw, that there's not going to be quite as many matches as 4 per week from here on out. So we'll probably catch up fairly quick from this point on. But either way, I think there will be a good amount of stuff to cover, so let's hop right into it and see how this one goes. Electabuzz versus Dodrio. So obviously this is a pretty Electabuzz favorite situation. You're faster, T-Bolt doesn't quite OHKO, but you've got crit odds. The thing is, a lot of Electabuzz, or at least the players using them, will be greedy and click Body Slam here, trying to call out something like a Hypno coming in. So sometimes the Dodrio players do get away with a little sneaky Body Slam, so I'm curious how aggressive they're both feeling, and I guess we'll see. So Dugtrio and Phil does indeed click not T-Bolt and gets a Psychic crit, which definitely sets him up better against this Dugtrio, but as you can see by that crit roll, one more Psychic wouldn't even do it, so gotta get out of there. And with that crit, I wonder if Chungler's feeling pressured to click Earthquake, in which case this Dragonite is going to be really rough. And there is an Earthquake, so Phil just with a huge lead off the bat and some pretty good matchups, but Haunter, definitely a good answer to Dragonite. And Phil blizzarding there, so kind of interesting to me. I feel like when you're in that commanding of a position, you really can make some call outs and just throw out a Thunder Wave or even make a double switch. So I am kind of surprised. Like it's a very safe click, but I feel like when you're up this much, you can kind of be a bit of an ass and just like push. So I might have considered a T-Wave, a Body Slam, a double switch. I think double switch is the answer I like best there, though. But either way, get some damage on Haunter. That's pretty good. So Electabuzz comes back in, hoping to take the Hypnosis, and if the Hypnosis misses, it's shown Psychic, which means it's pretty threatening to this Haunter. Jungler gonna stay in and go for it, and gets it, luckily. If that Haunter got crit, or if it missed that Hypnosis, I think this game was pretty impossible from here. And Phil telegraphing like a willingness to try to wake up, or that there's going to be something in back that can handle this. But just as Dugtrio comes in, goes to Raichu, so double electric. Raichu does tank Earthquake here, but I feel like you'd always go to Dragonite in this position. And I wonder if Chungler doubles, because surely... Okay, sub decent option. I think doubling actually would have been the best play there. Not sure quite to what. I think it depends on what's in back. I'm expecting your average player is going to have a Lapras and a Hypno, which leaves one unrevealed on each side, barring some more interesting teams. So, you could double in Haunter and threaten some tricky, like, explosion stuff. Every bit of chip on the Electabuzz is pretty good, but I guess it's kind of slow when there's a Raichu on the enemy side, so maybe this is the best option. Either way, sub crit Rock Slide is really good now that Dragonite actually could lose this to one more crit. And goes to Lapras on an expected Blizzard. So this Dragonite not clicking Body Slam, either afraid of the Haunter entering on it or telegraphing that doesn't have any normal moves and it's like Blizzbolt, T-Wave, Agility, for example. Given the Raichu's presence here, I could see this being like some agility spam idea, and there being like a Dodrio, a Moltres, something like that in these last two slots. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like Moltres, Lapras, Hypno in the last three. On Jungler's side, Lapras coming out means willing to take some chip on this at this point just to get this over with and preserve the Dugtrio, which makes sense when you see the Raichu. and when the Dragonite starts getting so chipped that the Dugtrio actually reasonably can take it out. But I'm going to assume Hypno, and the last... This team's very fast and aggressive, so I think you could go one of two ways here. You could either fill it out with one more bulky thing that's meant to support the attackers, or you could throw in another attacking guy like Kangaskhan, Persian, a fire type, one of those, and just go fully in on the offense. So we'll see how that ends out. And Phil just gonna T-Bolt. Probably wise, especially if this Raichu has agility, because then it's gonna sweep through the Dugtrio and the Haunter no problem anyway. And the Dodrio. But Hypno comes in, gets to sleep. Oh, instant wake. I was about to say, though, I kind of am interested in that immediate hypnosis, so I understand that it sucks if you just click Psychic into a Hypno coming in or something like that, but you're already slept. Chungler has to accept a sleep somewhere. Kind of surprised Chungler didn't maybe go to one of these guys. Probably Haunter is the reasonable one to go to because it's a little useless at 29%. I'm also kind of surprised that Phil just went straight for the hypnosis. They might have both considered the switch and then both decided it's not going to happen. So on the second turn, both of them again committing to staying in. Kind of interesting. I feel like Chungler would at some point maybe consider sacking something else or going to Haunter, and if it misses, you just boom. And if you boom the Electabuzz is out of the game and you can sleep something else with Lapras or Hypno. But at this point, Phil just giving up on the hypnosis, getting unlucky with it. And Chungler revealing, okay, so it was another fast Pokemon like I thought. It's a Kadabra. It's a nice mix of supporting units and also being another fast one to come in and kind of just kill things on its own. So Dugtrio, Dodrio, Kadabra is a lot of speed, and it's a bit of a mixed thing between you've got your physical attackers and special attacker, and you have all of those at over 100 speed. So it gives a lot of offense. I think it works here. I like that. So Kadabra gonna come in, clean up after taking a resisted psychic to save Lapras some HP. And it is Moltres from Phil, so that's like kind of indicating agility spam to me. Moltres looks really, really good into Chungler's team. Like Articuno also looks amazing if the Lapras had gone down, but Chungler preserving pieces until seeing what comes out. Moltres looks amazing, particularly because the Dugtrio is chipped. The one thing it does worse than Articuno here, I'd say, the biggest thing is just that it won't OHKO Dodrio. So that does give some odds to get hacked. It also just is a little bit less bulky than Articuno, but it actually breaks Lapras, so that's good. And instant para, that's unlucky. And I think Dugtrio is pretty set to win this game at this point. Oh goodness. Okay, Kadabra recovering. Just gonna try to recover through Fire Blast / Hyper Beam stuff, and Double Edge, of course, also doing like 50%. But now this time, just gonna try to go for the drop. No drop. Goes to Haunter on an expected Hyper Beam or Double Edge. Gets it, and now Haunter gonna get sacked. I wonder what the play is gonna be around Moltres. Maybe it's Hypno? No, it's going to be Lapras. So Lapras does obviously one shot from here because Moltres is weak to ice. And I guess it has Surf too, so that's even safer. So I think that's a good play with the two electrics here. You want to just give up your Lapras and do that. And if Phil's Lapras comes in, you still have your Kadabra, you have your Hypno to threaten. Going Dodrio first. Okay, so just going to try to take this down on raw damage and not give up Sing. Kind of surprising that Chungler didn't Hyper Beam that. I think you just straight up Hyper Beam it so that it's always going to be in range by the end of this. But no, not going to happen here. And Kadabra tanks the Sing, which I think might be a bit of a mistake from Phil. I feel like maybe you have to Sing Hypno to actually have a chance to win this. But going to Raichu, probably threatening the agility here, but Hypno just comes in on that and you lose. Yep. Okay, so I read the team idea correctly. The problem is you need the Hypno asleep to win that. Raichu can beat Kadabra because of the bulk difference, but it can't really beat Hypno without a lot of luck. Like, now you need to agility up and then crit this. You still need to agility even with that para because Dugtrio is faster. Unless Lapras. I mean, Lapras could just do this by itself, but I still think you probably Agility the Raichu, and that just gives up too many turns, and eventually you're going to get crit or dropped and just lose. So unfortunate, but really I think just the Moltres didn't get enough because the paras or this game would have been probably in Phil's favor. But I do think Chungler made some very smart choices. I really liked preserving the Doug trio, and I liked preserving the Lapras earlier and using the Kadabra as a switch into Hypno. I think both those things gave Chungler enough resources to get the advantage and stay ahead. Oh, hey, never mind. Maybe there is a chance. I think if this Hypno gets one hit, yeah, that's not enough. But the drop... okay, so obviously the drop isn't enough for Dugtrio to tank the hit. But a crit or a para wins? Nope, no crit. But a para. Okay. So Phil getting unlucky in this game one, that's unfortunate. Both of them bringing very, I'd say, overall aggressive teams. Phil going in on the double electric and running into a Doug trio is very sad. I would say Moltres looked extremely good in the Chungler's team. There's like nothing here that even can pretend to sponge a hit from it, so definitely a tough one, but sometimes it's how it goes. So Chungler up 1-0. Let's hop right into game two. Another Electabuzz coming out and a Kadabra this time. This matchup is, I'd say, probably like a bit even overall. The main thing is really Electabuzz usually is going to have Body Slam, but you have to fit Thunderbolt, Thunderwave, right? And you want Psychic to hit Golem, you want it to hit Haunter. So if I'd say if the Electabuzz has Hyper Beam, this is probably Electabuzz favored overall. I would say that if it does not, this is probably a bit Kadabra favored overall. But either way, Kadabra very forcing, so Phil clicking Thunder Wave because you're a bit afraid of that. I do think if like Body Slam was a valid click there, I would be very surprised if the Electabuzz didn't have Body Slam. And I think you can greed a little with Body Slam on turn one. If you get the para or a crit, you're super up. Even if you don't, the Kadabra is still in Hyper Beam range and it's a bit of a gamble. But Phil playing it safe because there's a Gyarados here to help pad this out, and Doug subbing up to just scout what the Electabuzz chooses to do. Rock Slide, no crit. And Gyarados just surfing to break the sub. But revealing Surf is a bit of an info leak from Gyarados, I would say. It's important to realize with Gyarados, it needs Hydro Pump to 2-hit KO some stuff, like Kangaskhan. So showing Surf and revealing no Hydro means stuff like Haunter, like Kangaskhan come into it safer. You probably don't ever hard switch Kang into Gyarados unless you're desperate, but it does make Haunter a lot less afraid. And I do wonder what this Gyarados is about to click. A lot of them would click Body Slam there, I would say, to stop people from switching out to something like Hypno or whatever else. Or even for Lapras, it's a good mid-ground, but I'm wondering what Phil thought and what Phil clicked. Another Surf. So either expecting that a Haunter might be the thing to come in, or just interested in getting stab hits off on whatever's coming. Either way, back to the Electabuzz to try to sack it to sleep, catches a T-Bolt, and now this is a lot worse for Chungler than it was before. I'm actually kind of surprised by that T-Bolt. I feel like it would have been pretty reasonable to Psychic or to Hypnosis there. T-Bolt, I feel like you never expect the Gyarados to stay in. A little crazy when there's still a Doug trio that needs to be checked. So, not quite sure. And Psychic from Electabuzz, another thing that I'm not 100% sure on. I do think that one's a lot more reasonable and justified in that the Haunter can stay in and go for sleep. We saw it happen last game where the Haunter stayed and tried to sleep the Electabuzz. But here getting punished by Hypno coming in. And I think it makes sense to preserve the Haunter when you see the Gyarados, knowing that it can take it out pretty easily and threaten Boom. So Hypno probably just going to Psychic this down, but we're not going to know just yet. And just T-bolting, T-waving, not afraid of Doug coming in, but getting a lot here. This Hypno's getting nothing, and now Doug coming in after a whole lot of punishment. Phil's still just T-bolting. I'm actually really surprised. Does this, I wonder what this means. Like maybe this just doesn't have Body Slam. Maybe it has Hyper Beam to like pick off Hypno or Kadabra from like middling percents, but no Body Slam to actually get them there. And this time, Chungler gonna sub, but Phil just committing to it. And I do believe at this range, Electabuzz almost always lives Earthquake. I think it does around like 75 to 80 here. Don't remember off the top of my head, but really kind of trying to force this Doug to commit to an attack so you can get Gyarados in, and that'll be another sub. But I don't feel like if you don't crit with Dugtrio, I don't even think this is really good. I think this Gyarados has gotten immense value in this game, and if it hits the Haunter again, I think you're very happy with that. If it T-bolts this Lapras, I think you're very happy with that. It's done a lot. I think this Gyarados has gotten all it needed to, and now Haunter pivoting in on a T-bolt, I don't think that even really helps. It keeps it on the high end of Psychic range. So Electabuzz needs a 43 maxed out at 43% on Psychic, minimum roll is 36.5. So Haunter will usually live that because of that pivot. So that's a cool move from Chungler, keeping this Haunter like one more hit out of death range. But even so, I mean, if you miss one Hypnosis, this is just cooked, but gets the Hypnosis, so not decidedly not cooked now. And now just going to repeat the steps from last game. Doug looks like it has one more sub in it, so I'm kind of wondering if Chungler will go for that. But no, just content to sit in this spot and force it. And Phil accepting this KO means there's something fast and back that can revenge this Haunter. So I'd have to assume that means something like a Dodrio, like a, probably not a Raichu, because that doesn't kill without a crit here, I don't think. Could be a Dugtrio. Dugtrio actually looks really threatening here. So Chungler only has one unrevealed, and nothing here switches into Doug well at all. So if Phil has a Dugtrio, I do think Doug is a very nice bring here. Raichu, not quite the guy for reasons we're about to see. Yeah, unideal, very unideal. I think if you want to do that, I think you have to switch to Gyarados on that turn and try to catch Boom with the Gyara. But that tells me Phil 1000% does not have a Dodrio and does not have a Dugtrio, both of which look like they would absolutely obliterate this team. Yeah, Chungler's team incredibly frail, and I really wonder what this last is, because surely you need something like a Dragonite or a Gyarados to help cover for these ridiculous weaknesses that these top three Pokemon are introducing. But with Phil seeming to run this double electric idea again, which also has a million weaknesses to it, I have to imagine that Phil's got Lapras Hypno and then something to help pad the weaknesses here a little bit. I'm wondering about like a Tangela, a Golem. Golem would follow up well on all the para being spread, but then you're really putting a lot on Gyarados to tank all the potential Doug trios coming in. And from what I've seen so far, it seems like Chungler really likes that Doug trio and Haunter. Tangela, I mean, I think would help pad the ground weakness, but then you've got two Pokemon committed to that, and I think you could at that point drop the Gyarados for something else. But it doesn't seem unreasonable. I think we'll see shortly what's going on. Okay, I didn't think that if it was a Golem we were going to see that immediately. I thought maybe if it was a Tangela we'd see that come in. But okay, Golem versus Kadabra, not an ideal matchup. You do tank two Psychics, but only if you don't get dropped or crit. And Rock Sliding, expecting there to be a Flyer or Lapras to come in, I guess. Either way, this is super over now, but I just fundamentally don't agree with Golem being the send in there. I think at that point you just have to send in like Gyarados, probably just throw out an attack here. Force this Kadabra to either stay in or Lapras take damage, and then you can kind of go to Hypno and force stuff from there. So here's the Flyer though. So yeah, this helps insulate Chungler, this Dodrio, against the threat of a like Dugtrio sweep a little bit. Not so great into Golem, of course, but Golem much less threatening this team than Doug. The whole point with that, of why I was saying Doug is so threatening is Haunter gets O-code, Kadabra gets crit O-code, and of course Doug is faster and can't be paralyzed. This Doug is already chipped. There's just like no switch-ins here except for this Dodrio. So if Phil had a Dugtrio, this would be over already, but as it is, with the Dodrio getting sacked to sleep, which is kind of interesting too, because like this Hypno could have come in and at least delayed things, then you have Kadabra Doug to clean up. I don't know. I don't think I love this. I don't love that this Dodrio has been sacked to sleep and then just sacked, period. But now Hypno going to come in to try to push some damage, and I think you can consider going hard Golem into this and just booming it. but if this is how it's going to go, I would go to Golem this turn. I think this is the turn that you needed to go Golem and not get T-waved. Yeah. Golem in right there would have pretty much claimed either a KO or like a third of Lapras's health, or even half. So I don't love giving up all this Hypno HP and Para on it versus two things that Hypno would have very happily checked and put to sleep earlier. Now I think Phil has made a big strategic mistake that actually makes her have to gamble a lot more. Still going to get a T-Wave on Lapras, and I think that's really big. That makes Golem a lot more likely to actually do something in this game. Also, the drop, amazing, because now this Lapras is pressured out. I wonder, I was going to say, if Phil had the foresight to T-Wave there and kind of get Chungler back for the previous game where this Kadabra switched into Hypno Psychic, I would have been really impressed, and that probably would have won the game because Golem would have been so well positioned. So I was kind of hoping Phil would gamble it and click the T-Wave, but no such luck. Lapras still looks really scary here, though, especially if it has Body Slam, which I really, really hope it does. Yeah, okay. With that, I think we might be heading to a game 3. It is very possible Kadabra manages to recover out of range and get some drops and make this really uncomfortable. I think, okay, so Gyarados is in Crit Rock Slide range. Maybe it's right to go Gyarados on this and use that to clean up here. But Confuse Ray first. Okay, I'm not sure I love that. I hope you T-bolted here. Okay, Body Slam mid-ground, but T-Bolt would have 2-hit KO'd. I think if you're going to do stuff like that, you have to be willing to take some risks like this. However, that does force Kadabra out at 57, so if this Gyarados, it needs to either get a very high roll on Body Slam, or if it has Hyper Beam, that just works on its own. One of those. But we'll see. Oh, Kadabra coming back in. I don't agree with that. I think you just needed to sack the Lapras there. It's not going to do anything for the rest of the game anyway at 14%. I think you needed to sack the Lapras for potential damage on the opposing Lapras and to get Kadabra a free entry instead of risking all these recovers. Because now the chances you get crit or para and then just lose are really high. I think Chungler made a mistake with that. So far, no such bad luck, but it's still asking a lot. And now Golem's going to get in on a para, so Golem's going to claim one here. I think probably the correct play there, by the way, was substitute. I think you just sub twice with Golem before you take the KO. But actually at 54, it may just be out of Dugtrio range. Not 100% sure. I guess we're about to see. If it is in Dugtrio range, then you 1000% needed to sub. Okay, no. It actually lives that 43 to 51. So actually, I will retract that statement. Subbing was not the right call because there's nothing that this Dug can do except crit it. And so Golem's going to clean this up. Golem Gaming. Nice. So it's 1-1 on the back of Golem. This team definitely a little bit awkward because there's literally 3, 4.5 things here weak to Victory Bell, arguably like 5.5. But still not running into a Victory Bell and being very happy about that. On Chungler's side, a whole team that gets obliterated by Dugtrio except for one tenuous check. So both of them kind of playing with fire in their builds here, and I find that very interesting that they're both willing to just leave open this gap where one Pokemon basically dismantles their whole team. And I do wonder if the Brings are going to keep holding for another game. We've seen from Chungler in the first game, we saw Kadabra, Haunter, Dugtrio, Dodrio show up. And now here we are again, exact same Pokemon, just different order, just different lead. And then on Phil's side, we just see double electric and a flyer on both of these teams. Just very interesting stuff. So let's just get into game 3, see what they bring, see if it's more of the same or something else. Kang leads, that's already a change from Phil, and Buzz lead from Chungler. So both of them changing it up. And Dragonite coming in, but I don't think that's a safe switch into Kang. I've talked about this in previous videos, but a lot of times Kang versus Buzz, the right play is to Body Slam first, unless you think a Haunter might come in. Covers everything that isn't Haunter, pretty much, and Body Slam into Earthquake takes out the Electabuzz anyway, so why wouldn't you go for the Paraslam first? And now here, paying off with Kang basically getting a whole Dragonite for nothing but a Paralysis. And Chungler going to Lapras, I don't think I like that. That's a lot of damage to give up for free here. And Surfing first, interesting. So Surf for the no miss odds, but like now you still have to hit Blizzard and hope you roll high. Like that was Chungler getting rewarded by a para, but that was really, really iffy. I think Chungler is still down a way too much for that. Like Hypno comes in, okay, that's maybe not very good. Yeah, now it's iffy. I think you can sack Dragonite to dodge the Hypnosis and get something else in at this point, especially now that it's at 35. And Psychicking here, thinking that there's a Dragonite pivot coming, but instead Hypno down to 1. Now Dragonite going to be sacked to ensure no sleep and get something faster in, such as the Buzz. Yeah, there's the Buzz. So Molt comes in to revenge this, and if you're sending Moltres into Electabuzz, I have to think that you're pretty desperate. Obviously, it's Electric Weak. It actually should 1v1 it most of the time, yeah, because Thunderbolt only maxes at 49, so it does have to crit. But I still, like, this is desperate. This is really bad. That means there's, like, nothing else on this team that can fight an Electric. There's no Dugtrio, there's no Golem. There's definitely no Grass type. Yeah, none of that, but Jungler has a Fire type answer to this, so this Moltres is going to get very little. Confuse Ray first. This move is very cringe, but I do think it's probably the correct click in situations like that, unfortunately. I'm now going to get a free body slam, and Ninetales can just 1v1 this Raichu flat out, which I think with the Buzz still fully healthy is fine to do. I don't think you need to mess around. Don't love that agility, but I guess if you crit Surf, it looks pretty good. And Raichu going to go down with Ninetales still having enough health left to be a pain unless Phil has something. Persian is something. So Phil's team, another one of these like fast offense teams. I'm guessing the last is going to be a Lapras still. So we got Molt, Persian, Raichu, Kangaskhan, good amount of offense. Jungler's team, so far pretty good mix of typings with Dragonite, Electabuzz, Ninetales, and the obligatory Lapras. So I'm expecting a Hypno, and the last really is up in the air. I would think like a Dugtrio would be a nice way to round this team out. But we'll see. I think if I'm in Chungler's shoes, I'm probably considering sacking the Lapras here instead of the Ninetales. Ninetales can still get something later. I think you would probably sack Lapras, and then you can go to Electabuzz and T-Wave this, for example. You could go to some other thing in the back. It's possible that Chungler has a Hypno, but I think that is stacking a lot of ground weaknesses on one team, and I don't exactly love it. If Chungler sacks Ninetales and preserves Lapras, then what I think will be happening is that there's a lot of speed control in the rest of the team, and that means the Lapras is just wanted to force like big blizzards on a paralyzed Persian or something. So it does seem like Chungler's route here is going to be to go to Electabuzz or some other fast para guy, or slow para guy that has some bulk. Surely you T-Wave this and don't mess around with Hypnosis. Yeah, okay. So that comes through, and now, as long as the last can fight Persian and at least like do some decent damage to it, I think Electabuzz cleans up here. So Hypno going to trade for Dodrio, or Lapras getting sacked to preserve, but Dodrio paralyzes anyway. Blizzard miss. Oh, I hope that Phil agility'd. No agility. I think the lack of agility is going to bite her. Because now there's no switch into Electabuzz at all, so Dodrio has to get sacked. Persian or Moltres can't 1v1 Electabuzz after the Confuse Ray chip, so Buzz can just T-Bolt twice, go for the crit as well. No crit on either side. So Buzz is going to take out Moltres and then get revenged by Persian, or okay, saving... I mean, that's really unfortunate, but I don't think that switch was correct either way. I think it probably depends on Chungler's last, but now it's just automatically over. I think probably sacking Moltres was fine. You can come in with Persian, get the KO, and then one para from Hypno, and it's a 1v1. I think Phil overthought that a little bit. I see the vision. I totally get the vision in that Electabuzz T-Bolt was only going to do like a third to Persian. So you can get the slash off. It's still out of Hypno range. And if the last is another Pokemon that's slower than Moltres, you get at least 2 attacks off, maybe even 3, and you can win the game that way. So I really wonder what this last is. That kind of is determinant. If Chungler's last is another fast Pokemon that is at least faster than Moltres, I would say that this was over regardless. If it's not, then I don't know about that. But like I get the intention. The Molt was out of range of one Hypno Psychic. The Persian would have been out of range as well after that Electabuzz T-Bolt. So honestly, no, the more I think about it, I kind of did like that play, but I do think you're risking more. Yeah, I think it's just a gamble on what the last is, and I mean, who knows what the last would have been. If it was like a Doug trio, this game was probably screwed regardless. Or is if Chungler just hit through Para with Hypno, I think it would have been pretty hard to win regardless. So a couple ways this could have gone wrong, but Phil playing to her outs, and I respect that a lot. So this one does not go her way, but congrats to the Chungler, and that's our first game of week 4. So as I said, I'm going to be trying to put these up every single day, starting from this one will go up on September 9th or Tuesday. And I'll be trying to put up one per day till I'm through this. I still have videos planned for Grand Slam and some other stuff that I've been working on. But honestly, my attention has been a little bit more off of Pokemon lately, or at least off of RBY. I've been playing in a black and white UU Spotlight, and I'm currently 4-0, which I find really funny. I have played the tier before. I'm not jumping into it totally lost, but it is very funny to me that I'm doing better in that tier than I'm currently doing in RBY UU, I would say. Yeah. So I might even make a video about that at some point. A really bad inept video about my thoughts on black and white UU, which is steal teams, win games, but who knows? Maybe I'll do that. I have some other stuff in mind too that's still Pokemon focused, but not focused on Gen 1 UU or anything like that. So I might do some of that, but we'll see. I've got some video ideas in the works when I've got a little bit more time and energy, but life's busy. I am finishing a dissertation for my degree, so that's taking priority right now. And when that's over with, I'll put a little more focus into this. But in the meantime, click the buttons, give me the dopamine, and I'll see you in another one tomorrow. Bye.